Welcome to the Lifting Lounge podcast. Join your hosts Josh Parkin and Jack Buffery as they give you the knowledge and the tools to take your physical and mental performance to the next level.
Fuck you.
It's a good way to start an episode.
It is a good way to start an episode. Hold on, I'm still trying to get everything ready. At the moment, I've just opened
Why did you press start?
because I can do it while you're like introing us. But also, I like the fact that I'm slightly. Do you know what another worrisome feature is about the study you're bringing up today?
What?
At the top, it says an official website of the United States government.
Oh, yeah. No. Yeah, that's. Don't worry. I actually got the study from Stronger by Science, but I went to the proper studies because it's PubMed.
Yeah, it's through. Oh yeah, is it PubMed? It's through.
Yeah, it's PubMed.
I didn't know
yeah.
PubMed was run through the NIH.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm.
Perfect. Anyway,
Yeah.
like, the audience has absolutely zero fucking clue what we're talking about right now. So,
People, welcome to our room.
Hi, we're just having a general chat, guys. It's all good. It is for the listeners. It is Monday, the 31st of July. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're almost in August.
Almost in August, and the whole world is burning, but we're not. We're getting rained on.
No.
I'm glad. I don't want to be burning, to be fair, but yeah, a little bit of sunshine wouldn't go all right.
Yeah, I feel bad for anybody living near the equator, really. It's a bit crazy, isn't it?
It is a bit mental. It's a bit. People are still flying out to Greece as well. So for those who don't know what's going on, especially if you live miles and miles away from Europe, there's a load of places in Greece and Spain, I think. I don't know if Spain's got the wildfires, but I know it's getting ridiculously hot. And in Greece as well, there's been wildfires everywhere. Thousands of people are having to be evacuated from certain islands. And there's still people flying out there, on a daily basis, still flying out to Greece to go on holiday.
Yeah.
And it's not covered by the insurance or anything. So, yeah, it's mental.
Absolutely mental.
Absolutely
it's nuts,
mental.
But yeah, it's pretty fucking crazy. But we're in the UK, so we don't really get that. We just get rain.
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
Dear.
Yeah.
Right, so Josh.
Yes.
I would like you to tell me. I'd like you to. I would like you to tell me. I'd like you to give me a tip, but I really want to put it in a position of you being bent over and having a good grip on something whilst you give me your tip. So,
wait! Whoa! Hey, look, man! Hey, whoa!
I mean, it's
whoa, bro! Whoa!
Just saying, I'm just grabbing hold of what you're putting down, Josh.
Whoa!
Why don't you go into your tip?
I'm a married man. I am a married man. So, my tip for today, people, is if you want to get more out of your dumbbell or barbell rows, then have your torso parallel to the floor. So when you're doing bent over rows, try and make sure that you are parallel to the floor. Try and bend over as much as you can, keeping your back flat. The reason for that is what a lot of people don't realize is you actually get a lot more range. If you look at the angle of your arms from your torso when you're doing bent over rows, if this is my torso and I'm quite upright, this is the angle of my arms. And if you're watching on YouTube here, you can see. If you can't, then I'm really sorry. But if I bend over more, the angle becomes a bit more. You get more towards 90 degrees of the angle of the arms from the torso, which then allows you to get way more into your mid back, into your rhomboids, into a bit of your lats, into the rear delts, and you're going to get way more out of that exercise. Yes, some people might say, oh, it goes into my lower back when I do that. If it does, you need to try and load up your hamstrings and your glutes more. So you're almost doing like a stiff leg deadlift into position. Make sure the hamstrings and the glutes are like constantly active, and then start rowing. But that way you're going to get way more out of your rows if you're parallel to the floor.
Yeah, I completely agree. One of the things that I tell my clients not to do when they're doing a bent over row, because sometimes people will get into that position fine, and then with each rep they'll jack themselves up. So that angle you were talking about earlier on, so they'll start off parallel to the floor, and then they'll just kind of jack their chest up, so their hips will stay at the same place, but the angle of their hips will open up, and they'll just end up with chest basically facing the wall. And then it turns into some bastardized shrug because they end up using the upper traps instead of the lats and the rhomboids, what they're supposed to be doing. And it becomes like half bicep, half trap, weird Frankenstein exercise that isn't doing anyone any favors. So yeah, that's a really good shout, is keeping that torso absolutely parallel to the floor. Basically, think about making a tabletop with your back, and that will put you in that good position.
Yeah. Also, it's a case of a lot of people when they're doing bent over rows, and we see it all the time, is they don't control the eccentric, and then they just like try and throw the weight up. It needs to be a controlled exercise for you to get the most out of it. So you need to slow the eccentric down. So when you're lowering the weight down to the floor, you're doing that yourself and controlling that, rather than just letting it drop. And then you actually pull all the way up to your if you're barbell, pull all the way up to your belly. Or if you're doing like more rear delts, rowing all the way up to your chest and actually hitting that, rather than going halfway and like maybe like throwing up the last little bit. It needs to be controlled with bent over rows. I went through a period of time where I really tried to master the bent over rows, and then I did a deficit bent over. For me, someone like me, I'm quite short, so I can quite easily go past my feet with a barbell. So I'll stand on some blocks and do deficit bent over rows. And my back got so strong from doing that, but I had to make sure that everything was super controlled and I was hitting the top of the rep every time.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a great tip. It's actually just given me another idea for a different episode, because there's like loads of nuances of stuff that we kind of probably take for granted that when we're coaching someone we'll say, but when we're talking about it on this, we probably slips our mind sometimes. So it'd be good to do an actual episode on nuances. Like another one I can think about when you said about controlling the eccentric down. There's something I see, and what you see in one move, you'll probably see in the opposite move as well. So there's something called packing the shoulder that is really it's a way to stabilize the shoulder, and you've got to do it in both the bench press and the row. If you don't, if you're on the bench and then you're throwing it up in the air, your shoulder will come off, and it's the same on the row but the other way around. Your shoulders will drop down. Just little things, little bits and pieces like that, I think it'd be quite valuable for the listener and the watcher to hear about those things. So yeah, we'll do an episode on lifting nuances soon, just like the general things that you got to
do. Definitely 100%. So let's move on to Geek Corner, and my Geek Corner today is another question in the My D&D group, where I've been dropping the questions in there and people have been commenting, and I've picked just my two favorite answers from this, and I'm going to put mine in there as well.
Okay.
But the question was, what D&D racial trait would you like to have? So each different race within D&D has its own kind of gimmick or thing that they can use when they are in the game. It might be good for social encounters. It might be good for combat. It might be good for all these different things. Like one that everybody would always say is like the ability to fly if they're an owlin or an aarakocra, which are the bird types of people. You know, that's a standard racial trait.
You asked me to Google this. Well, you asked me to research D&D racial traits, and those two are definitely not on the list that I was looking at. So I'm going to be a little bit behind on this one, but that's cool. So I would try to keep up with what you're talking about.
Yeah,
I've got
don't
a few
worry, that's completely fine.
Okay.
Yeah. So the two comments that I had that I liked was, one was dark vision, and the person who commented, said they would like dark vision. One, their eyesight's not that great, so at night time they're struggling to walk around. But the ability to see in the dark would be pretty fucking cool. And the way I see it is, for what would actually be the most useful for the ability to see in the dark, so I have the dark vision, is at nighttime when you really need to go for a wee, but you can't be bothered to turn the lights on.
That's fair enough.
That's the best time, I think, because the amount of times I'm tripping over something in the bedroom trying to go to the toilet because I just don't want to turn the light on, because one, I don't want to wake the missus up. So I think
that is a
dark
very
vision would
good
be
point,
great
though,
for
to
that.
be fair. And plus, getting onto a health and fitness perspective here, turning the lights on in the middle of the night when you're trying to still be asleep, like, I bet you do this as well. When you do that, when you go into the toilet and you actually switch the light in the toilet on, do you try and squint so you let as little light into your eyes as possible? So it's like,
Yeah.
like, right, I don't want this fucking light to wake me up, so I'm going to squint, just about see my penis, and then let it rip, and then turn the light off and like stumble back into the bedroom. So yeah, no, dark vision is a good one.
And the worst thing about like peeing in the dark is you're never 100% sure if you're going to get it in the toilet in first shot. So you're like, so it's always a bit of a game of like, you're just listening for the sound, but if you don't hear the sound, you're like, where is the pee going? So, dark vision would be great for that.
Oh my god, there's a fucking all our female listeners right now are going, I fucking knew it. You just piss on the toilet seat, you dicks.
I'm so glad my wife doesn't listen to this.
Yeah, Kimberly does. She's going to be bringing this up. That's for damn sure.
Oh no. So the second comment was dragon breath. So if you are a dragonborn, you get the ability to breathe fire, but you get, well, to breathe an element, shall I say. And I asked them what flavor their dragon breath would be. I think that's a pretty cool way of asking it. Cool, and yeah. I'm pretty sure they said ice or lightning, which is pretty cool, because it's a bit different than fire. I mean, everybody's going to pick fire breathing at some point, but ice or lightning, imagine being able to breathe ice, because if you could breathe ice, then you can make ice cream really easy. Oh no, fire or lightning, they said fire or lightning. So
so that when I
and
think
also
of lightning,
breathing fire would be great in...
Go on.
Sorry, breathing fire would be great in a survival setting, is if like you're out in the woods and you're like, shit, I need to make a fire. And then you could just, oh, fuck it, I'll just breathe on it.
That is very true. That'd be very cool. When I think of the lightning one, I think of that badass dragon from Vox Machina, because that was a lightning one.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was cool. It looks fucking cool as well. Yeah, I like them. And like you say, like the dragon breath, that reminds me instantly of the shotgun cartridges from John Wick 4. But the ability to have some sort of fire element would probably be amazing. Like, it gets me. It makes me want to create stories when I think about shit like this. But just imagine, like, if you know, like the X-Men and mutants and stuff, if like that was how man discovered fire back in caveman days, and then that person, that mutant, was heralded as a god or something like that. It gets my creative mind flowing. I quite like that sort of stuff.
Yeah. What would so do you have an idea of what trait you would have as a racial trait?
Well, so when I was a barbarian, I was also part Aasimar. Aasimar, I think that's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And the Aasimar side was descendants of celestial beings. Aasimar have radiant-based abilities and are often gifted with the ability to heal or provide a boost to allies, which I thought was quite cool. But I also like the Goliath, because that's increased strength and the ability to shrug off extreme weather conditions. That reminds me of a game you still haven't played, which just makes you stupid in my eyes. That is Metal Gear Solid. There's a bad guy guy in Metal Gear Solid called Vulcan Raven, and he basically he's a unit, and he's like got increased strength, and he's like Wim Hof. The guy can like walk around in Alaska with like just a pair of trousers. So I like that. I think that is quite cool. But if we're going like full on
Mm.
powers, then I would like to have some sort of elemental power. Like that would be quite cool. But I don't know enough about all the different races and stuff to know which one that would be. Not necessarily out of my mouth. I don't like the
Mm.
idea of breathing fire out of my mouth. I reckon they give you really bad breath. But I reckon being able to control it like with your hands, I would like that. What's
Yeah.
so I've just seen this. Ganassi or Genasi. Do you know what that is?
Yeah. Genasi. So they're usually of some kind of like elemental type person.
Mhm.
So you can have a fire Genasi, earth Genasi, water Genasi. So like earth Genasi is usually when people design them, they might like look like some kind. They look humanoid, but they might look like they might be made out of some kind of earth or
Okay.
crystal or something along those lines. You know.
Mhm. That's cool. That's cool. So I like that just because of the elemental
Yeah.
side of things. That'd be quite cool.
So the racial trait I would have is halflings have a racial trait, and it's nothing to do with being short. Before you start kicking off, halflings have a racial trait that is called bountiful luck, and essentially what it is if you roll a 1 on an attack roll, you get to roll again. But I was thinking about how you translate that to normal life. So if something really like awfully bad happened in your life, you'd be able to just do it again.
Nice, that's cool. And we've all been there at some point. So that'd actually be really fucking cool.
Yeah, exactly that. So if I just like dropped a glass and smashed it everywhere, I'd just be like, nope, re-roll, and then it just come back into my hand and I start again.
How so? I guess it only works immediately, does it? Like if you do something and then you immediately want to erase it. So like if I wake up one morning seriously regretting the actions of the night before, would I be able to do that?
Oh
or
yeah,
can I
no,
not go
that's
back that far?
tough shit.
Okay,
no.
shit.
And it's also only on nat ones, and nat ones are like the worst of the worst. Yeah, so it's only on things that are like super super bad. So if I crash my car, I might be able to go, no, fuck that. Just let me reverse out of this. And yeah.
Okay, I like that. No, that is good. I like that luck thing. Yeah, no, that is cool. That is cool. I would be curious to know what the most popular ones are as well. Like out of all of these things, especially from like, it'd be interesting to hear from the DMs, like the dungeon masters, I wonder if they have an idea, like when they're writing their story, because obviously when DMs write their story, they don't know what characters everyone's going to pick, do they? I can't remember if they do or not, actually.
No, I don't think so.
So I'm like, I wonder if when they're writing it, it's like, go on.
Yeah, I think they let people. It's different. So some DMs will go, you can choose whatever character you want, and some DMs might put some restrictions on it, like, you can only pick from this set of races and this set of classes. So the campaign we're in now, we couldn't pick 2 classes, and he said there is a criteria of what, like, there's these members of this pirate ship, you have to be like a cook, or you have to be like this, that, and the other, and then you build your character around that, essentially.
Okay, that makes sense, because I was wondering, like, if DMs ever think, oh fuck, this guy's got that power, that's going to make this part of the story really like either hard for me or too easy for everyone, like something like that. It is so good, so in depth. Yeah, I like it.
There's one race. There's one race called the Yuan-Ti Pureblood, which is like they're like half serpent, half people, but their racial traits are so ridiculous that I think a lot of DMs just ban them from their campaigns.
Oh, really?
Because they basically get immunity to some things, resistance to a lot of things, a lot of innate. Yeah, they just get a ridiculous amount of stuff. So so a lot of people just ban them from their games, which is fair, I guess. If it's going to be a bit broken, it's never as fun when they're too broken, you know?
Oh my God, just so you know, I'm getting all my information from. I know I go off about AI and doomsday and stuff like that, but considering I talk about that, I use ChatGPT for a fucking lot of stuff. And I just asked it if it's got any more, and it's just come up with a load more that I've never heard of as well.
Yeah.
Forged Turtles.
Yep.
Wicked.
Yep.
Tabaxi, which is Tabaxi remind me of what are they called in Skyrim? the
Yeah,
cat
yeah, yeah,
people
yeah,
stuff are in.
yeah. I know.
Kenku, which is a crow-like freaking humanoid.
Yep,
Tritons, Arakocra. Oh, Kimberly would like that. Bird-like
yep.
humanoids with flight. Yuan-ti. Oh,
She is.
that's
That's
what
who
you were
she
saying.
plays right now.
Oh, is it?
Mm.
Nice. I just found out Yuan-ti is right at the end. Snake-like humanoid with variety. Yeah,
Mm.
okay. Nice. Yeah, that's cool.
Mm.
Makes me want to play again. I haven't played in fucking months.
Well, I might run a one shot soon, so you might be lucky.
I'll be up for that. Yeah, I'll be up for one shot.
So moving on, we've got today is a lot of public interaction in today's episode. So we had this question in the D&D group. Now for our Fit Talk, we have another poll that was on our Lifting Lounge Facebook group, and I asked this poll. I think it was yesterday. Actually, I asked this poll. I thought, do you know what? Let's see what everybody says. And the question is: you only get to do one type of training for the rest of the time, and you have to pick one, and that's it. And these were the criteria. You can either do strength / powerlifting, bodybuilding / muscle building, so you don't have to compete, but just a hypertrophy essentially. Cardio, CrossFit, body weight or calisthenics, and then I just put dance in there for a bit of fun in case somebody just wanted to do Zumba all the time.
Why not?
And we did it as a poll to see what the number one score was going to be. And the winner, which I think surprised me, but then didn't surprise me at the same time, was CrossFit.
It was CrossFit. I'm just looking at the results of the poll now.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
It was CrossFit.
It was.
I know nothing, but we both picked CrossFit as well. So
So do you know what? Right. So yeah, we both picked CrossFit, which kind of makes me beg the question, why don't we ever do it? It's like one of those, like we talk quite a lot about understanding your goals, understanding what you want, like organize your life around it. We both pick CrossFit, but yet neither of us train like a CrossFit athlete, which is quite entertaining.
No, we don't.
I think for me, I think it's my fitness levels that stop me training like that. But yeah, it would be CrossFit because it does cover everything. I would have to.
Mm-hmm.
I would kind of. Oh, it would be hard because it would be like a CrossFit athlete, but not necessarily just doing the everyday classes. I think it would. So I used to go to a box, and I don't know if this is the same with every box as well, where they actually go round in seasons because they've only trained at CrossFit boxes for, I think, 2 6-month stretches, but like a couple of years apart. And the first one I went to, I remember it cycled through like different phases. So you would do like all the performance stuff, and you would do a strength one. The cardio was still in there by a long shot, but I liked that kind of style of cycling through the strength, and then the strength is where you do the bench press, because the bench press hardly ever shows up in a CrossFit workout. A lot of push-ups, but hardly ever a bench press.
Yeah.
So it would kind of I would like that, but programmed around. So you're cycling through the phases, kind of what like we do with the RDA system, where you're cycling through strength, performance, and hypertrophy. I think it would be that sort of thing is what I would like. But yeah, why did you pick CrossFit?
I guess because if it's the only choice I have, I want something that's going to be as versatile as possible. So what's going to be able to hit everything, and like you said, CrossFit does that. The other one I would pick, if it wasn't going to be CrossFit, the other one I would pick would be bodybuilding. I would do that mainly because I think that is probably better in terms of for my joints, etc. But CrossFit is the one that's going to keep that cardiovascular aspect in there without it being just running. It's going to be a little bit more entertaining and varied enough not for me not to get bored.
Yeah, I like that. I think my second choice would actually be a bit different. And weirdly enough, this is like what you're focusing on quite a lot. My second would be body weight, just because of that. Or would it really? I don't know. So in my head, I'm thinking of a scenario like, for some reason, my mind automatically goes to end of the world scenario, and I've only got one thing I can do.
Yeah.
So I'm like, yeah, CrossFit or body weight. But no, I definitely see the value in bodybuilding. But if I could only do one for the rest of my life, I don't know, man. I don't know. That is quite hard. But yeah, CrossFit.
It's
CrossFit's
hard,
the
isn't
winner.
it? It's
Yeah,
very hard.
CrossFit is the winner. I don't know what the second one would be. It'd probably be either bodybuilding or body weight.
Well, it looks like you need to start CrossFit, Jack.
Do you know what? I mean, it has been tempting. If anything else, then just as a more interesting way to bring up my cardio. I mean, I have started doing circuits in the morning, but that's more for the sparring stuff that we're doing more than anything else. But it's fun, isn't it? It's not too bad because I don't like running. I am still on the lookout for a treadmill at the moment, though, to get a bit more cardio done just in general. But I think CrossFit could be could see me soon.
Could be the one. You could be one of them. You could be one of them athletes in the tiny shorts and no top, wrist bands on.
Yeah,
doing your workout,
everyone's
doing your double
slapping each other's
unders.
asses and wearing sellotaping places. Yes.
Yeah, I reckon you're in, mate. I think it'd suit you.
It would.
So let's move on, shall we?
Yeah.
Let's move on to study time. We'll get our lab coats on, and today is a study actually about lifting, which is good. We don't get many studies about lifting, really. We're normally more on the health side of things or the nutrition side of things, and it's actually looking at the minimum effective training dose required for 1 rep max strength in powerlifters, which is a really cool study. I like this. It's looking at actually this is the least amount you have to do to make gains in strength, and it's predominantly looking at powerlifting, so squat, bench, and deadlift, and it's done through a guy called Dr. Pack, who actually they're in the UK. I think they work out of Loughborough University, which is one of the best sports science universities in the world, and I'm pretty sure it's Loughborough where all the Marines go. And he has a podcast called Muscle on Fields, which is a good podcast. Him and another PhD level guy talking about sports science, a little bit more like they're like stronger by science, in-depth study. So it can be a little bit crazy sometimes trying to listen to them, but it's good stuff. So this, I'll just read through a little bit of the stuff here. But the powerlifting athletes looking to train with a minimum effective training dose approach can do so by performing 3 to 6 working sets of 1 to 5 repetitions each week. So that's not very much. That's a few sets.
Mm-hmm.
With these sets spread across 1 to 3 sessions per week per power lift. So that's 3 to 6 working sets of 1 to 5 repetitions per lift. Yeah, so if you're looking at squat, bench, and dead, that's per lift of those. Using loads above 80%, 1 rep max at an RPE. So if you don't know what RPE is, RPE means rate of perceived exertion. So usually on a 1 to 10 scale, how hard is it? 10 being as maximal as hard as it can be, 1 being super easy. So an RPE of 7.5 to 9.5 for 6 to 12 weeks. So that's good numbers and good actual numbers to go by. So working above 80% of your 1 rep max, 1 to 3 sessions per week, 3 to 6 working sets of 1 to 5 repetitions of an RPE of 7.5 to 9.5 and doing it for 6 to 12 weeks. To gain strength, powerlifters. Go on.
So the really interesting thing about that is that like a 2 day a week 5x5 fits into that completely, like literally right in there.
Yeah.
That is like 2 day a week 5x5, so you don't have to do the third one. That's cool.
Yeah. Powerlifting athletes who wish to further minimize their time spent training can perform auto-regulated single repetition sets at an RPE of 9 to 9.5, though they should expect that strength gains will be less. So, I mean, that's fairly obvious. Yeah, you can do less and still gain strength, but it's not going to be as much as doing a bit more, which is what we would guess. However, the addition of 2 to 3 back offsets at 80% of the single repetition loads may produce greater gains over 6 weeks while following a 2-3-1 squat, bench press, deadlift training frequency. When utilizing accessory exercises in the context of minimum effective training dose, powerlifting athletes typically utilize 1 to 3 accessory exercises per powerlift at an RPE in the range of 7 to 9 and utilize a repetition range of 6 to 9 repetitions. So you can include accessories and only like 1 to 3 exercises per lift, which is really great. So it's a lot of people will do their squat, their bench, and their dead, and then they'll do shitloads afterwards. And actually, it's saying you only need to do 1 or 3 exercises. But I think what is key here is a lot of people do accessories, but the RPE, the rate of perceived exertion, is super low. But you still need it to be in that top end range of like 7 to 9 RPE, but keeping the reps low of 6 to 10 reps. So powerlifting athletes can utilize minimum effective training dose during periods of limited time available, deloads, as well as potential competition preparation tools. So you can use it if you have limited time, if you want to use it for deload, and if you want to use it as a preparation tool for comp, which is great because you want to peak, but not you to use all of your energy up. So you want to save some energy for comp, but still keep the strength there, which is super important. Further, doing so may be a useful strategy to manage fatigue, injury risk among powerlifters who already train frequently with high loads and reduced volume, and thereby enhance longevity in the sport. So this is good. This is good for strength athletes who may be finding themselves fatiguing loads, who may have some injuries creeping up. And what this is saying is this is the minimum effective dose. This is the minimum amount of training you need to do to make gains. It's not saying that's all you need to do. It's just saying if you want to do the minimum to gain strength, this is all you need to do. 3 to 6 working sets of 1 to 5 repetitions a week per lift. And you can do it over 1 to 3 sessions, but you got to make sure that the intensity is in the 7.5 to 9.5 RPE. So making sure it is high intensity.
So do you know who Dorian Yates is? You must know Dorian Yates is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Everybody knows who Dorian Yates is. He's a legend.
Yeah, so again, for the listener, if you don't know who Dorian Yates is, just Google Dorian Yates back. And he has probably one of the most famous backs in bodybuilding history because it was just so thick. He looked literally like the Incredible Hulk from behind. It's fucking ridiculous. He's a British bloke. So I think it was from Mike Mensa. Was it Mike Mensa? I can't remember. But he was very well. Do you know anything about his training, Dorian Yates' training? So
he was all about he would count his warm-ups as sets, and he would work up to a certain weight and then go basically really intense for like 1 or 2 sets, I'm pretty sure. And then
just one set.
His workouts were not crazy mental.
Yeah, they were. It was just one set at full fucking intensity and stuff like that. And that's what. So minimal effective dose should be people's best friend, especially if you're the type of person that is on a time restriction. And we're actually going to get into this a little bit on the next episode. But yeah, I think it's really interesting to know that, because 3 to 6 working sets for 1 to 5 reps each week, especially if you have access to somewhere you can work out multiple times a day, that is another way to do it. And I think that's what it means by auto-regulated single repetition sets. So there's another real popular way of working out for people who have access. And granted, this isn't something you can easily fit into most lives, but one really good way to get stronger is actually splitting up your workout into multiple workouts a day. and you can also regulate that, and you can actually get better results by saying if you've got a set of squats, you can do a couple of sets in the morning, a couple of sets a few hours later, and a couple of sets a couple of hours after that. And I don't know if that's what it means by the auto-regulated single repetition stuff, but I'm guessing it's something along those lines in terms of time, and that can actually get really, really fucking good results. And for you're literally doing like 5-10 minutes of training at a time, and that's it. And then you do that like a couple of times a day. But yeah, I love the idea of minimum effective dose, because minimum effective dose can still get ridiculous results. It's better than doing nothing by a long shot.
Well, and that's what it is, isn't it? It's saying to people, it's not so much about doing less. It's saying that you don't have to do nothing because you don't have time.
Yeah.
There is a smaller, even doing so many people come in and go, if I haven't got an hour, I can't train. It's like, you don't need an hour. You can train half an hour and get good results. You've just got to be smart about it. And with this powerlifting thing, what's really important with the strength side of thing is it's really important, one, I think, to know your max so you can work off percentages, because then you know you're working in the right ranges. One, it is to make sure the intensity is high. I think that's the big issue, is a lot of people come and do like short sessions, but you keep the intensity low, and that's not really going to work, especially in strength terms. The intensity needs to be, one, it needs to be at 80% and above of your max, which is high, yeah? So one, you need to know your max, and it needs to be in a high intensity range. It needs to be hard. You can't come in and just dawdle for 15 minutes, then yeah, it's pointless. If you come in and push that 15 minutes and nail yourself, you're going to do really well.
Yeah, and that's such a good point. And we've spoken about percentages and stuff before. Percentage training is really interesting because as long as you're working in a certain percentage range, it doesn't mean you necessarily have to put weight on the bar each week to keep your gains or to get progress. As long as you're working in a certain percentage range that is still helping that strength curve, then yeah, you can do some real interesting, cool things with programming.
Yeah, definitely. There's also calls for it in bodybuilding as well. So the Renaissance periodization guys, they went for a spate a while back, and I don't know if they talk about it as much now, but where they were talking about twice daily training for bodybuilding. And what they would do, their argument behind it is they would do, say, the bigger, more taxing lifts first. They do that as the first session, and then the second session in the day would be the more accessory based, the less nervous system taxing workouts, so more isolating moves, more maybe arms, whatever. But that way, the sessions are shorter, but you can put way more effort into both of those sessions as long as you're eating correctly throughout the day, and then gain more muscle mass from that, because you can put more into each muscle group rather than doing a big 2-hour bodybuilding session where you try and do arms at the end, but they're so screwed because you fucked your back up. It's better to split it up.
It makes sense. It's like a bell curve. It's you're like you say, with the nervous system, especially you're peaking, which means that by the time you've got, say, a real fucking heavy load of deadlifts out of the way, your body isn't necessarily going to want to try to funnel too much more into giving your accessories the recovery and the growth it needs. So yeah, you're better off. Yeah, it does make sense, but obviously 2 sessions a day isn't practical for most people. Most people can't even go once. So yeah, it is good, and that kind of ties in with what I said earlier on about multiple times a day as well. So one of the best results people found of doing it, say splitting even a setup to multiple times a day, is that the fatigue from the set before are completely gone. However, there is an interesting correlation with minimum effective dose here, is that you can have too little stimulus sometimes as well. So the intensity, like you were talking about, Josh, has to be there if you're doing that sort of training too.
Yeah, definitely. The intensity has got to be there. So yeah, that's your minimum effective dose, guys. If you haven't got much time, follow this minimum effective dose. I've put the link for the study in here, but also the link to the Stronger by Science article, which is probably a lot easier to read than the actual study itself. But still quite hard to read because the Stronger by Science guys are fucking geniuses. So let's move on to the hot topic and another engagement here from the public. So this is actually a listener question from Jack, one of our clients.
Great name.
Who owns Musovic, who owns Musovic sunglasses, and that's Mosevic. So go check them out.
Hold on, how much money is he giving you on the backhand for that?
No, he's not. But he's not. But I'm saying it now. I'm saying it now, just to make it awkward for him, because he's going to have to go along with this now. He's going to be our first sponsor. I'm telling you.
Excellent. That's what I like to hear.
Yeah. So
the link will be in the show notes, guys and girls. Go check out his website, and just whatever contact form he has, just write you heard about him on the Lifting Lounge. That'd be great for us.
Yeah. Yes. So he brought up a good point, and we did this with strength, and I didn't realize is that we tell people all the time to eat protein, but we haven't actually told anybody why. So today's hot topic is about protein and what is the big deal with protein? What is the point? Why do we need to eat it? So my result is I'm going to provide you with base knowledge of protein's importance. The driver is because we talk about it all the time and we tell you to do it, so we should tell you why. And my actions are I'm going to break down why protein is the best macro. It's not macro. It's not the best macro. All macros are equal, but it is the best macro.
Yep.
So I've linked and I'm sorry for you, Jack, because you write the show notes. I've linked another study in here. Just if anybody wants to, because we base everything on studies, and if anybody wants to go into why protein's the best, this study that I put up, which is from PubMed, essentially covers most of the reasons why people need to eat protein and its relation to muscle mass, and so why that is important. So if you want to go in and read that, people, you go ahead. But the first thing and the most important thing really when it comes to protein, and Jack, as always, butt in at any point if you want to say anything about protein and why it's important. But increased protein intake contributes to greater strength and muscle gains when coupled with resistance exercise. It allows for greater muscle mass preservation when consumed during periods of negative energy balance, and it limits age-related muscle loss, and to a lesser extent provides a greater muscle mass. So, pardon me. So, essentially, that is it. If you are wanting to gain strength, build muscle mass, prevent muscle loss as we age, which is can be a really good big problem as we age. If we're not training and we're not eating high amounts of protein, we will lose muscle. Then what we need to make sure is we're having a high protein intake. That is the first and foremost reason to eat protein. There is plenty of other reasons as well, which we're going to go over, but the first and foremost reason is that it will make sure you do not lose muscle mass as you age, and it helps improve your strength and build muscles. So protein in the body helps synthesize muscle mass, helps create more muscle, and it helps build strength, and it helps prevent you from losing muscle mass.
Yeah. And I mean, we've talked about this numerous times about why muscle is so important. So just a quick overview: it helps you do everything that you need to do. It helps you live longer, it helps you lose fat quicker, it helps you obviously be stronger, and mechanically it just makes your body a better performing machine.
Yeah, it's not, and we're not saying here, like, a lot of people, muscle mass gets a bad rep. So when we say build muscle mass, a lot of people think, well, I don't want to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. That's not what we're saying. You're not going to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. That's very hard to do. What we're saying is
wish.
just even even a minimal amount of muscle mass is super important. It's what we need to perform daily tasks, to just be that little bit stronger for our body to be healthier. So we're not saying get huge amounts of muscle mass, but you need lean tissue to be healthy. So that's why we need to have a high protein diet.
Mhm.
But there is other reasons, and the reasons number one is if we're trying to lose weight, and a lot of people listen to fitness podcasts and fitness stuff because they're trying to lose weight, and that's completely fine. And if you're trying to lose weight, high protein intake is super important. And the reason for that is it preserves muscle mass when you're in a calorie deficit. And a calorie deficit is generally what we would call a catabolic state. And there's two words that we might be using here, and one is anabolic and one is catabolic. And catabolic is when you break it, the muscles break down. And when you're in a calorie deficit, that can happen unless you're, one, doing resistance training, so lifting weights, and two, you're eating a high protein diet. So if you're having high proteins, then you're preserving that muscle mass, which you might lose when you're trying to lose weight, which is great. The only time where it starts to not work as well is if you're in a calorie deficit of 40% or more. So if your baseline is a 2,000 calories, but you're 40% below that, which is quite a lot, then the protein won't have as much of an effect. But to be honest, your calorie deficit is probably fucking too low.
Mhm.
So you don't need to be 40% down. But yes, so if you're trying to lose weight, high protein diet is super important because then you preserve the muscle mass and you don't lose that and don't just get super, super skinny.
Yeah, and that's a really important point as well. So, in the extreme example of being catabolic, what you should probably realize is that a bodybuilder in the weeks leading up to a show is actually putting themselves into a catabolic state because they're shredding the fat off completely. So they will be manipulating water and salt and glucose as well with this, but they will also be making sure they're getting high protein in to mitigate any excess muscle loss. That's at the extreme side. That's the extreme end, though. So when you see a bodybuilder on stage, they're actually in a catabolic state where their muscle is probably going away a little bit, but they're eating loads of protein to try and mitigate that as much as possible.
Well, yeah, all you need to do is look at a pro bodybuilder in the height of off season, and then look at a pro bodybuilder on stage, and the size difference is ridiculous. They'll look absolutely monstrous in the height of off season in comparison to what they look like on stage, because they do lose a bit of mass. Like, it's inevitable that they lose some mass, obviously body fat as well, in the lead up to comp, because they're putting themselves in such an extreme diet.
Yeah.
But I mean, as we've said before, that's not particularly healthy.
No,
but
not at all.
it's a sport. It's not about life. That's a sport. So
yeah, it's
so,
it's a good way.
yeah,
Especially
so
if
if
you're dieting normally, then then that shows
Yeah.
how much even more important it is just to keep what little muscle mass the average person has. Then you want to keep onto that as much as possible.
Exactly. So the next bit is carrying on about it, dietary protein, and it's more about saying what would happen if you have an inadequate amount of protein. So inadequate dietary protein intake challenges muscle and whole body protein balance. So essentially, if protein balance is off, then it will not synthesize or not break down, and then our body might not be able to utilize it as well, and that would negatively impact muscle mass and muscle function and adaptogens to exercise. Bone and calcium homeostasis ends up being affected as well. Your immune system response, fluid and electrolyte balance, enzyme production and activity, hormone synthesis, all gets affected if you have inadequate amounts of protein. Muscle gets catabolized, like we said, and that's to provide amino acids to allow for continued this is all scientific words for you guys, but for continued endogenous protein synthesis in critical physiological tissues and organs. So essentially, our tissues and organs need a certain amount of protein to survive. And if we are not getting that in correctly through our diets, what happens is our body will start to break down muscles to use that for our organs. Our organs come first, everything else is secondary. So if we're not getting enough protein in to supply nutrients to our organs, supply the right amino acids to our organs, all of that stuff, then the body will do what will take from what it can, and it will break down your muscle tissue to do that. So this is on the extreme level, yeah? So this is if you're getting next to no protein in, but you'll be surprised by how little protein people actually eat.
Yeah.
I mean, we see it all the time. People only eat like 20 grams a day, and I'm like, you guys need to fucking put those numbers up.
And that goes back to the last episode about
yeah.
being a skinny fat as well. Like, that's where you see that happen a lot of times, is where people look skinny, but because they've got no muscle mass, their fat percentage relative to their muscle is actually really fucking high because they're not getting any protein in to help muscle synthesis at all.
Yeah, exactly. So that is the negative effects of not getting enough protein in. You know, it has a lot of drawbacks if you're not getting it in. So that's why it's super important to eat protein. The other thing now, and this is for fat loss again, and when I was looking this up, I didn't actually realize the difference in the percentage numbers here, which is really, really cool. But protein increases your metabolic rate, and essentially it increases your energy expenditure. Yeah. And it does that by diet-induced thermogenesis. So essentially, some food that you eat increases your metabolic rate or causes you to burn more energy because it requires more energy to run through. And the numbers here, which I didn't know there was quite a difference, but the thermogenic effects of nutrients are approximately 2 to 3% for fats, 6 to 8% for carbohydrates, and 25 to 30% for protein. So protein is a shitload higher in its thermogenic effect compared to carbs and fats.
Yeah.
So which, if you're having a high protein diet, you're going to burn more, essentially.
And that's exactly it. So you can get negative calorie foods, basically. So I think this is negative calorie. I'm pretty sure like something like a lettuce leaf or a cucumber, you actually burn more calories digesting it than you do eating it. So it would be very, very hard. It'd be impossible, in fact, to eat so much cucumber and lettuce that you would be able to you wouldn't be able to hit your daily requirements before you feel full up. Like, you just couldn't do it. And that's why some people get like the meat sweats. So that 25 to 30%, when it comes to protein, the fact that it takes that much more calories just to digest it. If you've ever eaten a shitload of meat at a barbecue and got what is known as the meat sweats, that is because your body, so calories is just burning energy. That's like what calorie expenditure is. So you're actually creating heat through chemical reactions in your body. When you're eating so much meat, your body has to work so fucking hard to burn it. You actually get the meat sweats because your body is warming up so much from digesting that amount of protein. That's a real physical effect you can feel of the thermogenic effects of different nutrients.
Yeah. And a little nice bit in this bit as well, it says that it seems that higher quality animal protein sources induce greater increases in thermogenesis than vegetable protein sources. So if you're on a diet and you are not sure if you want to go veggie for protein sources or animal protein, then actually high quality animal proteins might be better when you're trying to lose weight, which is wonderful.
Yeah.
Now, go on, carry on.
I was wondering whether that's this is just me musing at the moment. I'm wondering if that's to do with so as you know, like vegetable proteins, you need to get such a varied mix of them to hit your to hit the amino acid profile that you need. Whereas meats and eggs and fish, they have a full profile of amino acids pretty much. Most vegetable proteins only have 1 or 2 available amino acids, so you've got to mix and match them to digest them properly. So I'd be curious to know whether that means a single vegetable protein, or if you're combining them together, whether that would be different. But what I'm hypothesizing in my head is the reason it takes longer to digest, therefore more thermogenic, is because the bioavailability of different minerals and vitamins and stuff like that. I'm guessing that's why it takes longer to break down.
Potentially, yeah. I know that's something we'd have to look into. So, Jack, we've given up. I mean, this is quite a bit of information on protein here for people. What would we recommend for the amount of protein people should have on the daily?
So you get a lot of differing opinions about this depending on your sources, but most people who understand the body and strength training and its relation to keeping a healthy functioning body, you are looking for about 2 grams per kilo or 1 gram per pound of body weight of protein. So, and just so you know, if you've got a chicken breast and you're chucking that in the scales and it's 100 grams, that isn't 100 grams of protein, by the way. So, a chicken breast, 100 grams of chicken breast contains roughly about 30 grams of protein in it. So, you do need to take that into consideration. So, when I tell people, let's say I'm training a woman who weighs 60 kilos, that she needs to eat the equivalent of, what is it, 5? Yeah, 5 big chicken breasts a day, or 4 big chicken breasts a day, sorry. That usually get like, what the fuck, I can't do that. And it's a big thing to consider. So you do have to get used to it. We don't recommend just trying from tomorrow. If you're eating 20 grams a day now, probably not the best idea to try and get 120 grams in every day from tomorrow. You've got to build up to it a bit to avoid digestion issues. But it seems like a lot, but it is what it is at the end of the day. There's no point bitching about it. Just get it done.
Yep, definitely. What that means as well, if people are struggling to get that in, is most people only think about having protein with like one of their meals. Just try and have it with every one.
Yeah.
And you can also supplement it with buying some form of protein powder. I mean, we always recommend some kind of whey isolate. And you can get it from most places now. So a whey isolate with you don't need to get any like crazy ones. Just get a standard whey isolate, and I always recommend chocolate or vanilla because any other flavor is kind of gross.
Yeah, it gets sickly after a while.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, it does. But yeah, just try and get protein in with every meal, and you'll most likely hit it. And then go from there. But if that's essentially why we recommend getting protein in, but the main reason, and I'll go back to the start of this, the increased protein intake contributes to greater strength and muscle mass gains when coupled with resistance training. So it's not just about eating protein, it's also about lifting weights. And it's making sure that if you want to get the best results out of your training, then you want to be eating plenty of protein. And also, as we said, there's a lot of negative impacts of not eating protein. You don't want to become catabolic or lose muscle mass. You don't want to, and it's also good for hormone regulation, all of that sort of stuff. So we got to make sure that we're getting plenty of protein in. That's why we keep going on about it.
One of the best pieces of advice I could give anyone is to make sure, if you have breakfast every day, try to make sure about 40% of the calories are coming from protein. Start your day off well, and then it will be so much easier. There's many benefits to this, but if you can just nail it in. And I mean, I'm not the biggest advocate of any type of processed foods, but if you want something really fucking simple, this is going to cover all bases, because this is going to get carbohydrates and it's going to get it's going to get fats, and it's going to get protein, and it's going to get fiber. And this mix for this food, this particular meal, is going to set you up in a really good way. So porridge oats with a scoop of protein powder mixed into it, made with whole milk and flaxseed in there as well, and berries. With that meal, you are going to cover all your bases for a nigh on perfect first meal of the day that's going to help keep your satiety levels in check for the rest of the day, and your mood levels as well, because it's going to help regulate your blood sugars in such a good way. So there are other ways you can do it that can be more whole food, but if you're looking for a simple thing you can just pick up, cook, and eat in less than 5 minutes, then yeah, that's probably the route I would go down.
Happy days. Great. So guys, that, as you saw today, there was a listener question for the hot topic. So if you ever have any questions, comment on our socials, or comment on, if you're listening on Spotify, you can actually drop questions on the episodes now, or send us a message, anything along those lines. If you have any questions or any topics that you want us to cover, we will cover them. That is something we're happy to do. But first, before we shut the episode off, Jack, I have a question for you.
Go on.
What did the O say to the Q?
P.
He said, no.
Okay.
He said, dude, your dick's hanging out.
I like that one. That tickles my childish sense of humor. Very good.
Yeah.
O-P-Q. Yeah, there is a P between O and Q. I was just making sure I wasn't going insane for a second then.
Yeah, there is, yeah.
Josh, where can they find us? Where can they find us?
They can find us on Instagram or TikTok at RDA Strength System. Find us on YouTube at The Lifting Lounge. They can find our Facebook group, The Lifting Lounge. Come and join us for free training, all of the good stuff. They can find me at Josh on Lifting Lounge, you at Jack from Lifting Lounge. And living a dream.
Yeah, baby. Wherever you are watching us or listening to us and just enjoying our presence, make sure you leave a 5-star rating review, like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Make sure you click the notification bell on YouTube so you can be notified every time that we are releasing something new for your treats. Josh, on a scale of 1 to 10, I have a question for you, because I know you're going through exactly the same thing I am right now. Just before we sign off, on a scale of 1 to 10, how badly do you need to pee right now?
Oh, mate, it's always a 10.
On that note, ladies and gentlemen, have a great fucking day. We'll speak to you soon.
Bye.